Let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.
I hope you guys are having a good day. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School, and I wanted to pop in real quick, and I want to say welcome to everybody, and also welcome to the Black Financial Channel. That's theblackfinancialchannel.com. So if you want financial news and commentary from a black perspective on a daily basis, make sure you subscribe to theblackfinancialchannel.com and follow the Black Financial Channel on Instagram. I wanted to come in for a minute and answer a question. I got a question today from one of the students in the Black Business School, and I thought it was worth doing a quick video on. They were asking about student loans and whether or not you can compare student loans to sharecropping or to predatory lending. Now, you know, sharecropping, we know that's bad. We know that predatory lending is bad. And we know student loans haven't worked out so well either. Just to give you an idea of how bad student loans have been for the black community, if you take 100 black students that are going to go to college, about 52 of them are not going to graduate. So more than half of them are never going to finish, but they're going to probably have debt for the next 20 years anyway. And then out of the 48 that do graduate, half of that 48 are going to default on their student loans. I don't know. Give me a yes or no if you knew that. I don't know if you guys knew that statistic. It's pretty grim. But yeah, so 100 out of, you know, basically half of all black students never graduate from college anyway. And the ones that do go to college, half of them, you know, default on their student loan debt. So this is directly linked to the black wealth crisis that everybody talks about. See, a lot of people like to complain about the problem, but very few people want to pay attention to the solution. It's almost like when you talk about black folks dying, you know, from viruses and things like that. And then people get mad when you say, well, maybe we should focus on obesity and the things that are causing us to have pre-existing conditions. You know, because I know 2-3 months ago, I was talking about that whole thing with Lizzo mass promoting obesity to the world and presenting black women as these sort of big fat minstrel shows and, you know, big raunchy minstrel shows. And everybody got mad. But I said, you got to understand, you know, when you're enabling the behavior that's taking people out, that's killing people, then you're as much of a problem as anybody else. So anybody who ever says, you know, that you know, doc, you don't care if people are dying, you don't really care. I'm like, no, actually I care more than you do, because, you know, 2-3 months ago you were telling me that I was wrong when I said that mass marketing of the kind of genocidal behavior of obesity and the things that kill black folks is not a good thing. So the same thing is true with the student loan thing. The reason black wealth is dropping to zero in 2053, hey, give me a yes or no if you've seen that study. I don't know if any of you have seen that study, but the reason black wealth is expected to drop to zero for by 2053 is largely due to the fact that the most educated black folks are saddled with so much student loan debt that they never get a chance to actually build wealth. They actually end up retiring in debt, dying in debt, leaving their families in debt. And so so this comparison between student loans and sharecropping and predatory lending, I thought that was worth thinking about. So what I did was, because you guys know, finance is my background, so I decided to do some research on it. And so I looked at the technical definitions of predatory lending, the technical definitions of sharecropping, and I thought about ways that you can compare the three. Well, if you think about sharecropping, what was the problem with sharecropping? Sharecropping was a lot like these record deals. A lot of rappers get sharecropper record deals. It's a situation that says, I know you have no capital base. Black folks don't have power because you don't have a capital base. Powernomics talks about that. So you have no capital base, meaning that you know how to farm and you know how to grow crops, but you ain't got no land. You ain't got no mules. You ain't got no equipment. You ain't got no seeds. And you ain't even got no clothes. So I'm going to do you a favor by providing you the capital base that you need in order for you to farm the land. And when you farm the land, I'll give you a cut of the money. Right? That's kind of how sharecropping works. Now, can sharecropping work out in a favorable way? It could. Just like record deals. I mean, you've had artists that have signed record deals that didn't make them feel like slaves. But then you had artists like Prince who went to his grave swearing up and down that he'd been made a slave. You have a lot of rappers who used to be rich, used to be balling, who are now excessively broke. So so the deal can work out. It depends on the terms of the deal. Well, why didn't sharecropping work out for a lot of slaves or former slaves? It didn't work out because the amount of money being loaned to the sharecroppers was impossible for them to pay based on the revenue generating ability of the asset that they were being provided. You know, if you're a sharecropper and I loan you, you know, if I give you land and tools and all that, and I get to decide how much those things cost, and then I say, well, you know, my tools are worth $10,000 a piece, my land is worth $500,000, and so I'm gonna loan you my tools and loan you my land, and you can sharecrop the land and pay me back. You know, if now what's happening is, number one, I've inflated the price, right, so that I can loan you an amount of money that you can't afford to repay. And that's the thing. Loaning is not really a loan, right? I'm letting you use something, but I'm deciding what that thing is going to be worth, right? Universities do that. Universities say, well, we want to help you get this thing called a college degree, which we know black folks, you're like the sharecroppers. You ain't got no land, you ain't got no tools, you ain't got no resources, you ain't got no food, you ain't got no clothes. So we'll loan you everything you need so that you can get this fancy degree, and another white man will hire you to go work, and with the money that you make from this fancy degree, you can then come back and pay the loan. Well, if I'm loaning you an education, then I get to decide what that education should cost. So as the university, I get to decide, you know, hey, it should cost $70,000 a year to go to this school. So, you know, we're going to give you tuition, we're going to give you a place to stay, we're going to give you food to eat, right? We're going to give you some extra cash so you can go buy some clothes or whatever. And that's going to stack up, and when you walk out of here, you're going to owe us. You know, when I was at Syracuse, I saw a lot of students, a lot of black students leaving with about $200,000 in student loan debt. Now, obviously, they go out into the world, and for many of them, most of them, they find that, you know, paying back $200,000 is really difficult. You know, if you think about it, when people buy their first house, a lot of people's first houses don't cost $200,000, and they spend 30 years paying their house back. So you're 22 years old, ain't making no money, but you're paying back a $200,000 mortgage and ain't even got a house. You're paying back a massive mortgage and don't even own a house. And so when it comes time for you to really buy a house, you can't buy a house. When it comes time for you to, you know, make moves, you can't make moves. When it comes time for you, when you hear Dr. Boyce lecture and you get all pumped up, like, I'm going to start my business, y'all. You're like, damn, I got this student loans and I got the bad credit, because half of all black college graduates default on their student loans. Ain't no shame in all of this. If you're in this category, I have no doubt that if 10,000 people watch this video, half of y'all know it's what I'm talking about from experience. I'm not even hating. I understand. I totally get it. Right? And so what it does is it kind of knocks you out of the game before you ever get a chance to play it. Before, you know, you're committed to a path before you even know which paths you could choose from. So would I compare student loan debt to sharecropping? Absolutely. The major problem with sharecropping is not the idea of loaning people money or loaning them resources. The problem with sharecropping is loaning people resources and money in a way that they cannot repay. And that's a common practice all throughout the world. It happens in India and other places, and that keeps them working. That keeps them that you know, little 7-year-olds in India are stitching soccer balls every day for big companies like Adidas and Nike and all that. And what's happened is, for many of them, they have to do it because their families got loaned so much money that they can't repay the money with you know, by stitching soccer balls. It's like if you're making $1 a day, you know, and you owe, you know, $1,000, you can't repay that. So they're stuck in this slavery. So basically, the student loan today, in the way it's manifests itself for black folks, is not only is it a form of sharecropping and predatory lending, but it does create a form of slavery. It creates a form of corporate slavery. You just don't feel like you're a slave because you're wearing a tie and a suit every day or whatever. You get to say you graduated from Harvard. But if you're in a situation where your debt is so high that you have to keep working for the corporations, then you effectively have been pulled into the same type of slavery that the little 7-year-old stitching soccer balls in India is stuck into as well. The only difference is that you get to dress a little nicer every day when you come to work, and you get paid a little bit more. But you're probably in deeper debt than him as well. So it's kind of a trade-off, right? So predatory lending, that's the issue with predatory lending, which is similar to what happens in a lot of record deals. If you watch New Edition, when New Edition got body slammed financially in that crazy deal they were in, where they did the world tour and sold millions of records and got a check for $1.87, that was another form of sharecropping, predatory lending, student loan type situation. Because what the agents and the managers did was they made a contract that said, we're not putting up anything. We're not making any investment here. Two things that happen in these agreements. One is they saddle you with a ton of debt. And two, they transfer all the risk onto you. So basically they say, look, every penny we put out, we get our money back first dollar. Not just our money back, but we also get back any fees that we believe we deserve for the services we provide. So if I wrote the contract, then I might say, well, you know, my fee should be $500,000 because I wrote the contract, right? And my buddy was the manager. You know, he managed the whole process while I was writing the contract, so he deserves, you know, at least $300,000, right? And the list goes on and on and on. And then when the money comes in, all these fees get extracted the same way universities are extracting their student loan debt, when really a lot of that debt is based on an artificial definition of how much a college degree is actually worth, right? So, like, for example, I mean, who really ever said a college degree is worth, you know, $100,000? I don't think a college degree is worth $100,000, right? So ultimately, student loans can be compared to sharecropping because it's basically a scenario where you tell somebody you're going to give them some access to capital at an exorbitant price, and it's at a price that they can never afford to repay, so they end up stuck sharecropping the land forever because they end up in debt. But a lot of the parameters of the debt are artificially defined because the person loaning the money is kind of like the central bank. They get to decide what everything costs. Also, you can compare student loans to predatory lending, because predatory lending, in a similar way, is basically a scenario where you saddle somebody with a lot of debt and a lot of risk, and they're not aware of the risk that they're taking. They maybe think the debt is less than what it actually is, or you give them an amount of debt that exceeds their capacity to repay that debt. So what happens with a student loan? Well, first of all, you're taking advantage of somebody because they're 18 years old. You know, you're saddling an 18-year-old with, you know, a couple $100,000 worth of debt. You won't give them a business loan, right? You won't give a 40-year-old man a business loan for $50,000, but you give an 18-year-old kid a student loan for a couple $100,000. Right? Like that's crazy. But why does that make sense? Well, because if I give a 40-year-old man a business loan, I'm going to give him real capital, right? That he's going to go and invest and decide what to do with it. A student loan is not actually a transfer of money. I'm not really giving you anything of financial value. I'm giving you an overpriced commodity. I'm saying that if you agree to pay this amount of debt, then you get a chance to come to my university. You follow me? It's like how they exploit the black college athletes. They tell them, well, we're giving you a free education. Well, I told you, you guys know I've been a university professor for 25 years. And when I was teaching at Syracuse University, University of Kentucky, Ohio State University, if I'm already going to teach a class with 40 people in it and they've already agreed to pay me, well, it doesn't matter if it's 40 people or if it's 43 people. So they might bring in those 3 people into my class and say, great, we now have, you know, 3 people who owe us a combined total of $300,000, but it doesn't cost them a single extra penny for me to teach 43 people versus me teaching 40. Do you follow what I'm saying? Give me a yes or no in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. If you get what I'm saying, like you know, I hope it's not too complex. I wanted to break this down because somebody asked me about it, and I think this is a conversation our community doesn't get a chance to have, because what you got to do is you got to put your microscope on that and understand that when you hear that black wealth is dropping to zero, when you hear that black wealth is disappearing, when you hear that by the year 2053, half of the black community is going to have a negative net worth, you don't just get mad and call Al Sharpton and complain about racism and white supremacy. We know those things are very real. I mean, Lord knows white men want to be on top, right? If there's any screwing, he's going to be screwing from the top. He ain't screwing from the bottom, right? So we know that all that's real. But you got to go deeper than that and actually look under the hood and figure out, okay, you know, we got 1.3 trillion a year coming into our community. There's a leak somewhere in the machine. Where's the leak? Let's find the leak and let's plug the leak. Well, the biggest leak that there is student loans. So to sort of, you know, summarize here the point that I'm making. By the way, please please hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, anywhere else, or Twitter, please retweet, share, all that stuff. I think people need to hear these arguments. So if you have an ignorant person in your news feed, share this video with them and just say, hey, check this out if you get a chance. The last piece I'll throw in there is this. So let's look at the commonality here. Sharecropping is when a person is loaned an amount of money that they can't afford to repay, and the capital that they're provided for that amount, for that loan, it does not provide enough income for them to comfortably repay the loan. Therefore, they end up underwater forever and stuck in slavery. Predatory lending is where a loan is made and you are exploiting the borrower in a multitude of ways, but it could be maybe they don't understand what they're actually signing, or they are borrowing more money than they can afford to repay, or you're transferring risk on them by, having terms in the loan that they're not aware of, like maybe the loan is more variable than they thought, so the interest rate can spike up, so you get them real good on the interest rate, or by loaning them more money than they can afford to repay, you're looking to reclaim their capital anyway. Like, yeah, I want you to put your house up because I know once like my grandparents lost their house that they lived in for 60 years because they took on a predatory loan, and when they couldn't repay the loan, they came and took the house, right? So I really don't want you to repay the loan anyway. I really actually want the house, right? Well, student loan debt, it's predatory in the sense that you're having borrowers sign contracts that they fully don't understand. 18-year-olds should never, it should be illegal for anybody under the age of 21 to be loaned $100,000 or whatever the student loan amount is without the consent of their parents. I think that their parents, but what's really crazy is that a lot of parents consent as well, right? Because we've been sort of fed an illusion there, right? So the borrower is exploited because they don't understand the terms of their signing. They're being loaned an amount of money that most of them will never be able to afford to repay, especially a black person going into a racist white economy. And then the last piece would be the other predatory aspect of it is that the amount of income and revenue that you can generate from the asset that you're being loaned is not adequate to repay the loan itself. You see, never let anybody tell you that borrowing money is the devil or that borrowing money is bad just because it's debt. Debt is not always bad. Debt can be a wonderful thing if it's done the right way. Debt becomes bad when the thing you're borrowing the money to obtain does not give you more than what you put out. So if I go borrow $1 million so that I can buy a machine that helps me make $10,000 a year, then that's very bad debt. That's not a very smart move. Or if I go borrow $1 million so that I can, have parties at my house and go on vacation, that's not good debt. But if I borrow $1 million to buy an asset that helps me make $2 million a year, well, that's a wonderful thing. You're doing me a favor by offering me that debt. So basically, student loans are the common factor, in my opinion, that student loans have in common with sharecropping and with predatory lending is that it's all bad debt. And that's the idea. It's bad debt versus good debt. All those scenarios I described to you, from the sharecropper on the farm to the horrible record deal to the the last piece, the predatory loan for a house or whatever. All those situations could actually be, if you change the terms of the loans, those could actually be beneficial things. Like those could be good deals, right? So that's the idea. So for black folks in America, the biggest thing here that you have to deal with is that because you have a lack of capital, because you have a lack of not just access to capital, capital was stolen from you, but also you have a lack of knowledge and interest in building capital. Capital is something that you can actually build. You end up stuck in these situations where you get put in these sharecropper type deals. So one of the biggest things that we work on very, very hard, we think about night and day in the Black Business School, is how can we, if you got 1.3 trillion in income flowing through a community, how do you use that income to generate capital? It's no different from having water flowing through the faucet and saying, well, how do we take this water and do good things with it? Do we freeze it for a rainy day? For in case the water flow stops, can we put it in the garden so that it can grow some crops or whatever? Like, what are you going to do with that cash flow that's coming through your community? So at the end of the day, you have to have capital. You have to build capital, and in fact, one of the things that I'm actually going to talk about, if you're interested, if you want to go take a look in the master class that I put together, one of the things that I show the students is how to build your own family bank, and what that comes down to is the building of capital or an endowment or something similar, so that when your family needs access to some capital to allow them to get things done, they're not having to go sign a sharecropper deal. They can actually go to the capital that they've actually got in their own family. So that's my 2 cents. I hope that helps some of you. And by the way, the masterclass does start on March 6th. If you're watching this video, I think today is sorry, not March 6th, May 6th. I'm sorry. If you're watching this on April 22nd or April 23rd, just for today and tomorrow, you can actually get into the masterclass at 48% off. We really chopped the price as much as we could. So if you're interested in coming to the masterclass, feel free to go to drboycemasterclass.com. That's drboycemasterclass.com. So if somebody could type that in, I'd appreciate it. Also, last but not least, Black Movie Night happens the 23rd. That's tomorrow night. We're gonna watch the Melanin Code together, get all together online and watch a movie together, a black movie, independent black movie, because one of the other Capitol building exercises we're doing, we're gonna do this forever actually, is we're building a black Hollywood. So we're making our own movies, we're building our own Capitol base in the movie industry so that we don't have to go beg Hollywood for opportunities. We got everything we need right here. We got everything we need right here. So Black Movie Night happens. We're gonna watch the Melanin Code, directed by Marcus Small. It's totally free, so you can register at blackmovienight.net. That's blackmovienight.net. And again, so somebody, if you could type in blackmovienight.net in the chat, I'd appreciate it. Also type in drboycemasterclass.com if you want to go take a look at the masterclass. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Have a good. Can you repeat the name of the website for the black movies? It's blackmovienight.net. And drboycemasterclass.com is the masterclass. All right, guys, I hope that this helps you guys. It was on my brain, so I thought I would share it real quick. So I hope you have a good day, and I'm going to get back to work. So I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones too late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.